Here's something strange about money. The gap between having nothing and having $10,000 will change your life more than the gap between 10 million and 100 million. One of those jumps is 1,000 times bigger. The other one is the one you'll actually feel. And that's the thing almost nobody tells you when they talk about wealth. We picture it as a straight line, a ladder where every rung is the same height, and you just keep climbing. But it isn't a ladder. It's a curve, and the steepest, most life-altering part of that curve happens way down at the bottom, in the numbers people are almost embarrassed to talk about. So let's actually rank it. Every level of wealth, from 0 to $100 million, but not by the number sitting in the account. We're going to rank each level by the only thing that actually matters day to day, how much it changes the way you live, sleep, and think. Because a dollar isn't really buying you stuff. At every level, it's buying you the deletion of a specific fear. And once you can see which fears get deleted at which level, you'll never look at a net worth number the same way again. Let's start at the bottom, 0, or below 0, which is where a lot of people actually live. At this level, money isn't a resource, it's oxygen you're running out of. Every dollar that comes in is spoken for before it even lands. Rent, minimum payments, gas, groceries, it's assigned the moment you earn it. The defining feature of this level isn't that you're poor. It's that you have no margin, no slack. A flat tire isn't an inconvenience here. It's a crisis that cascades. You put the repair on a credit card, the card maxes out, the late fee hits, then the interest, and suddenly a $200 problem has quietly become a $2,000 spiral. And this is not some rare edge case. The Federal Reserve found that in 2024, 37% of American adults couldn't cover a surprise $400 expense with cash or its equivalent. They'd have to borrow, sell something, or just not pay it. 13% said they couldn't cover it at all, by any method. $400. And the average car repair last year ran over $800. So the fear you live with at this level is constant, quiet, and physical. It's the fear that any small thing could knock the whole structure over. That's the real weight of being here. Not the lack of luxuries, the lack of a floor. Now watch what a single $1,000 does. It's not a lot of money. You can't retire on it. You can't even really relax with it. But $1,000 sitting in an account you don't touch changes the physics of your entire life. Because now that flat tire is just a flat tire, the appliance breaks, you replace it, you move on. The emergency stops turning into a catastrophe. This right here is the single best exchange rate in all of personal finance. That first $1,000 buys you more peace of mind per dollar than any other amount you will ever save in your life. It is the difference between living one bad day away from disaster and living with a little bit of ground under your feet. Most people skip past this level in their heads because $1,000 sounds small. It isn't. Going from 0 to 1,000 is the biggest psychological jump on this entire list. You will never feel a bigger relief per dollar than you feel right here. Remember that because it's the whole point of the video. Next level, $10,000. This is where breathing room actually starts. Now you're not just covering one emergency, you're covering a bad month, maybe 2 or 3. If you lose your job, you don't panic on day 1. If the car dies completely, you handle it without borrowing a cent. You've got a few months of real life sitting in reserve. And something deeper shifts here. The way you make decisions changes. When you've got 10 grand behind you, you can say no. No to the toxic job. No to the deal that felt wrong. No to the person pressuring you into something you can't afford. Think about someone stuck under a boss who treats them badly. At 0, they're trapped. They physically cannot afford to walk out. At 10,000, they can hand in their notice and take 3 weeks to find something better. Same person, same job, completely different amount of power. That's what a cushion really buys. Not just protection from emergencies, the ability to walk away from bad situations. And the fear that gets deleted here is the fear of the near future. You stop bracing for next month. You start being able to look a little further down the road because the road stopped catching fire every few weeks. Now we climb to $100,000. This is the first level that starts to genuinely feel like wealth. And here's something that might surprise you. It's roughly where the typical American household lands. The median household net worth in this country is about $193,000, according to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey of family finances. So if you're sitting somewhere in this range, you are not behind, you're the middle, you're normal. At this level, money stops being purely defensive and starts becoming a tool. You can absorb almost any ordinary life event without it derailing you. A medical bill, a cross-country move, a stretch of unemployment, annoying but survivable. You start thinking in years instead of weeks. But here's where the curve starts to bend, and this is important. The jump from 10,000 to 100,000 is 10 times the money. It does not deliver 10 times the relief. The raw panic was already gone back at 10 grand. What 100 grand adds on top is comfort, not survival. Still huge, just a different kind of huge. This is the very first place you can actually feel the returns starting to flatten out. One quick honest note, because it matters. Where you land on this early part of the curve isn't purely about discipline. Housing costs, medical debt, where you were born, what you got paid, whether anyone helped you, all of it moves the starting line. Two people with the exact same habits can end up in completely different places. So this isn't a scoreboard for judging anyone. It's a map of what each level feels like once you get there. Okay, $500,000. This is where comfortable quietly turns into secure. For a lot of people, this is retirement finally coming into view. It's a paid-off house within reach, or already done. It's a kid's college that isn't a source of dread at 2 a.m. It's the ability to take a real swing, start a business, switch careers, move across the country without betting your survival on whether it works. And if you're under 40 with $500,000, you are already knocking on the door of the top 10% of Americans your age. This is genuinely rare air, even though it doesn't feel flashy at all. That's actually the theme from here on up. The higher you climb, the less the money announces itself. Someone with $500,000 usually doesn't look any different from someone with 100,000. Same kind of neighborhood, same kind of car. The wealth is quiet. It lives entirely in what they no longer have to worry about. And now, the big one, the number the entire culture fixates on, $1 million. Being a millionaire is the finish line in our heads. It's the actual word we use to mean rich. So let's puncture the myth a little, because the truth is more interesting than the fantasy. First, it's nowhere near as rare as you'd think. Roughly 18% of American households have a net worth of $1 million or more. That's nearly 1 in 5. And a huge share of them are simply people in their 60s who bought a house decades ago and quietly paid into a retirement account every month for 30 years. Boring millionaires. They're the most common kind by far. Second, and this is the part that breaks people's brains, $1 million is not a private jet number. Here's a clean way to think about it. A common rule of thumb says you can pull about 4% a year out of a nest egg without draining it over time. 4% of $1 million is $40,000 a year. That's a comfortable, secure retirement for a lot of households. It is not a yacht. It is not quitting at 35 to sip drinks on a beach for the next 50 years. And that is the great irony of the millionaire line. It's the level everyone dreams about, and it turns out to mean you can probably retire okay, not you will never think about money again. But don't undersell it, because the fear it deletes is the single biggest one most people carry, the fear of running out when you're old and can't work anymore. That fear haunts people for their entire lives. Erasing it is enormous. Level up again. $5 million. This is where the game genuinely changes. Because $5 million is the level where work becomes optional, truly optional, not the aspirational kind. At $5 million, that same 4% rule of thumb throws off around $200,000 a year without you ever touching the principal. That's a strong income for doing absolutely nothing. You've crossed the line from financially secure into financially free. And the fear that gets deleted here is a heavy one, the fear of your own job. When you have $5 million, your paycheck becomes a choice instead of a leash. You work because you want to, or you don't work at all. That's a shift most people never experience even once. The exact moment your income stops having any power over you. This is roughly the entrance to the top few percent of the country. And look at what we're actually buying as we climb. Down at the bottom, money bought survival. In the middle, it bought comfort. Up here, it's buying freedom, the freedom to control your own time. That is the most valuable thing money can purchase. And it's also just about the last genuinely life-changing thing on this entire list. Hold on to that, because everything above this point starts to blur together. $10 to $13 million. This puts you in the top 1% of American households. Depending on the year and the source, the line sits somewhere in that range. And here's the strange part. Compared to $5 million, being in the top 1% doesn't feel dramatically different on an ordinary Tuesday. Sure, nicer house, more security, real generational wealth to hand down to your kids, but you were already free back at $5 million. Your daily life barely moves when your net worth doubles from free to more free. This is the flattening in full force. The dollar amounts are exploding. We just doubled from 5 million to 10, but the change to how you actually live is small because you already deleted every fear that mattered. What you're buying now is mostly options you may never use and a cushion sitting underneath your existing cushion. The money is still doing something real. It has just stopped doing anything you can feel, which brings us to the very top of our list, $100 million. To put that in perspective, the cutoff for the top 0.1% of American households sits somewhere around 60 million. 100 million is past even that. You are a rounding error away from the billionaires now. This is a different universe entirely. And here's what surprises people most. At $100 million, the money mostly stops being about you. You genuinely cannot spend it on yourself in any way that meaningfully improves your daily life beyond what 10 million already handed you. You already had the freedom, the security, the nice house, the mornings with no alarm clock. So what does 100 million actually buy that 10 million didn't? A completely different category of thing, influence. The ability to fund a foundation, back other people's businesses, endow a scholarship, move a market, shape the world around you. It stops being personal finance and becomes something closer to a control panel. That's not a bad thing, to be clear. Enormous wealth can do enormous good. It's just no longer about your Tuesday. So sit with this comparison for a second. The daily life upgrade from 10 million to 100 million, a tenfold jump, 90 million additional dollars, is smaller than the upgrade from 0 to 10,000. $90 million changes your everyday life less than your first 10,000 did. Before we wrap up, look at the whole climb at once, because the pattern is the entire point. At 0, you're afraid a small thing will knock everything over. The first 1,000 deletes that. At 10,000, you stop fearing next month. At 100,000, you stop fearing ordinary life events. At 500,000, you stop fearing the future. At 1,000,000, you stop fearing running out when you're old. At 5 million, you stop fearing your own job. And after that, the fears just run out. You've deleted all the ones that touch your daily life. Everything above 5 million is buying you protection against fears you no longer have. That's the shape of it. Each level deletes one more worry until there are no daily worries left to delete. And the worries you erase early, the flat tire, the $400 bill, the bad month, are the ones that actually run your life. The ones you erase late are abstract. So let's go back to where we started. We just ranked every level of wealth from 0 to 100 million. And if you rank them by the number in the account, it's a clean, straight climb, each level bigger than the one before it. But if you rank them by the thing that actually matters, how much each level changes your life, the order almost completely flips. The most powerful, most transformative money isn't sitting up at the top, it's down at the bottom. The first $1,000, the first 10,000, the move from no floor to a floor. That's where the real magic lives, because that's the exact stretch where money is buying you the thing it was always actually for. The ability to stop being afraid. Everything above that is real, and it's good, and freedom at 5 million is a beautiful thing to aim for. Aim for it. But the exchange rate, dollars in, life change out, is best at the very beginning, and it never gets that good again. Which means the most important financial move of your life probably isn't the one that finally makes you rich. It's the quiet one that gets you your first real buffer. The boring one. The one that turns a $400 emergency back into just a Tuesday. Most people spend their entire lives chasing the top of the curve. The secret is that the best part was down near the bottom the whole time. And it's the one part almost anyone can actually reach.